Lovely. Okay, perfect. So we are recording now. So as I mentioned, I'm Dr. Rihanna Lutz. So we're going to be going through plant medicine to protect and react. All right. So our agenda for this evening is that we are going to have you meet St. Francis Herb Farm. We're going to review the immune system, just a snapshot of the immune system, because it is a very complex thing. We're going to talk about our seed approach, which is basically, as I mentioned, the immune system is a very complex entity. And how do we create that? How do we take that complexity and simplify it for you in a way that you can feel empowered with your immune system? And we're going to talk specifically about plant medicine to both protect your immune system and react to infection when it arises. So St. Francis Herb Farm, we are a second generation family owned and operated company. So 30 plus years that we've been in the herbal medicine business. First starting from a herbalist background where we first served actually the naturopathic community and then branched out into consumers and supporting people and their journey in plant medicine. So we're in Combermere in the heart of the Ottawa Valley, which makes us proudly Canadian, and proudly Canadian from seed to shelf. So what that means is that we're involved in the entire process of creating our botanical medicine and not just importing products, packaging it, and selling it in Canada. So we are, again, very proudly Canadian, and it's our mission to empower people on their wellness journey through both education and effective plant medicine. So we believe that the way that herbal medicine is made matters, and through this belief and through this mission to create effective plant medicine, we've been honing this craft over 30 years, and we do, through that experience and that craftsmanship, have created something called the holistic herb approach, which is organic. Well, it's based on 3 pillars: so organic, craftsmanship, and validating that processes through science, and our relationship with the biopharmaceuticals department at the University of Ottawa. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's get into the immune system. And I'm going to break it down really simply here, and then we can dive a little bit deeper. So the immune system and an immune response occurs when the body encounters a foreign substance. So oftentimes we call this an antigen. So an antigen can be from a wound, it can be from an insect bite, it could be a bacterial infection, or it could be a virus. So when antigens enter the body, and that can be through the skin, through the digestive system, through the respiratory tract, the immune system is signaled to launch a defense. Now, depending on that defense, it can release specific fighting cells, part of our immune system, or our white blood cells, that work to disarm the antigen and prevent any type of damage within the system. So the way that the immune system is going to respond depends on the type of antigen and whether the body has encountered it in the past. So this immune response can be divided into 2 different categories. We'll call the innate immune system, which is a more general immune system, and then our adaptive immune system. So the innate immune system, or non-specific immunity, is our body's first line of defense, and it's something that we're born with. And so we believe that this was first acquired from our mothers when we're being born, but more and more research is coming up that we're actually developing this in utero, or in the womb. But when we are born, we're getting certain immune acquirement, such as if a baby is born via vaginal birth, or cesarean, and there could be seeding techniques where we're exposing the baby to different types of bacteria. If a baby is being breastfed or chest fed, and then that is helping to build this baby's immune system. So then we develop our immune system over time, and we don't fully develop our immune system till 2 years. But when creating this non-specific or innate immune response, we're able to mount an immune response. So it performs an immediate general response to perceived threats and defends the body in most cases. So the immune reaction is often fast, responding immediately to different foreign substances. And this general or non-specific immune response does not necessarily adapt to individual invaders. So saliva, tears, fever, all of these things are an important part of what we call this innate or non-specific immune reaction. So then we have this other part of our immune system called adaptive or specific or selective immunity that's developed through life. And as I mentioned, we're not necessarily acquiring all those different cells until about 18 months to 2 years. And this involves specialized immune cells and what we call antibodies that can react specifically to certain antigens created through previous exposures and react very specifically to invaders. So this is a more complex response where we create these antibodies that are reactive to those specific invaders. So this can be a secondary reaction, secondary to this innate immune response, and can involve specialized immune cells. So we might hear T cells or B cells. Those are different components of the immune system. And then the immune system is going to create memories to those previously exposed substances or this acquired immunity, so future reactions are more efficient. So this is kind of the concept of like childhood vaccinations and things like that, is that we're exposed or we're starting to develop a specific response or a specific memory to that. So then if we come in contact with that infection in the future, we're able to mount a more effective immune response. Now, when it comes to the kind of best reaction or best support of the immune system, we know that an innate or a general immune system, because it can react to anything, is going to be really supportive or impactful for our immune response. That being said, one of the best immune systems is what we call a deep immune system, or this innate, and then also a balanced immune system, which we'll get to a little bit further on into the presentation. So the better that we can do to support our general or our innate immune system or our general defenses, we're able to mount an effective response or ability to react to basically any type of pathogen. So while that is your quick and dirty version of the immune system, or your quick overview, and while the immune system is very complex, our approach is simple. So we have created what we call our SEED approach, and this is an effective holistic immune defense strategy that supports a balanced, strong immune system through conscious everyday lifestyle choices, supplements, and for our purposes, and what we're going to really elaborate on today, is powerful plant medicines to shield you from infection, plus fight back and defend your health when illness strikes. All right, so let's get into our concepts of SEED. So definitely sleep and stress management are going to be a component of supporting this balanced or general innate immune system. So sleep, and specifically restorative sleep, such as ample length and proper sleep cycles, are essential to a strong immune system. So this gives our body the opportunity to rest, recover, and carry out essential functions in all systems so it can operate efficiently and optimally. And I talk about sleep stage cycles because different phases of your sleep, what I call your sleep architecture, whether that be stage 1 sleep, stage 2, whether that be REM or deep sleep, has different aspects and different components about how it supports the immune system. So when we talk about sleep hygiene and supporting different concepts for a very strong immune system, such as creating a dark, quiet, cool sleeping environment, minimizing screen exposure before bedtime, and keeping a regular sleep schedule. The reasoning for all of that is not that it's going to help you sleep, which is important, but it's going to allow for optimal melatonin production. Now, we're on what we call a circadian rhythm. So we have a daily rhythm that is supportive for our energy levels, our immune system, and all of these components to create a balanced, cohesive, optimal functioning system. So normally cortisol, which is one of our main stress hormones, is going to be nice and high at the beginning of our day. That helps to get us out of bed in the morning, and then taper off throughout the day to allow us to fall asleep at night. Now, cortisol is actually inversely related or in opposition of melatonin production. So we have to have cortisol come down in the evening to allow for melatonin to rise at night. And the reasoning that this is important for our immune system is that melatonin and our own melatonin production is very antioxidant, is very anti-inflammatory, and very key and supportive for our immune system. So definitely when it comes to sleep, there's a profound effect on our immune system. Now, when it comes to stress or different repeated episodes of high stress and frequent ongoing stress are both very common in everyday life, considering what is going on in the world, and can throw the body out of balance by increasing cortisol, which is one of our main stress hormones, to levels that can actually suppress the immune response. Now, things like meditation, deep breathing, journaling, exposure to nature, all of those things have profound effects on cortisol. Definitely, it's about finding the right tool for you that is going to help to bring down or to balance cortisol. Now, when it comes to plant medicine, or tools that we can utilize to help support and build resiliency in our stress system, we can use different components such as adaptogens or herbal adaptogens that help to mitigate and create more resiliency within our system. And I say this to patients all the time, like, yes, there are ways that we can look to either prioritize or work to stress management, counseling, any of these tools that are going to be effective. But my job is often about how can I make that person's bucket bigger? How can I create more resilience within someone's stress system? So with those fluctuating stressors, their body and their physiology is better able to handle that. So definitely, if you struggle in either of these areas, making a priority, especially for your immune system, and work with a healthcare provider to help manage both stress and sleep to help support your immune function. So what is an ideal temperature at night for sleep? For me, I like using like less than 20 degrees. Like if you can get to like 18 degrees, I like a cool external environment and a warm blanket. I love my nice heavy sheets. But I would say like 18 may be a really nice option for you. But again, you don't want to be awoken or woken up by being too cool. So just making sure that you could have a nice cooler external temperature, but then a nice warm thing to help increase your body temperature. Sometimes this has to do with constitution, like if somebody isn't good at heating up underneath the sheets or heating up underneath covers, they might need to increase their temperature slightly, but definitely you can kind of play with that. But I'd say 18 is a really nice option. My aunt would always turn down the heat when we stayed at the mountain town, in the mountain town with her. Great, I'm just gonna mark that as answered. Okay, perfect. So I'm getting some questions about herbs. So I'm gonna bump to the next slide and talk about stress. So basically, when it comes to stress and the immune system, so both the nervous system, so what we call the neuroendocrine system, and the nervous system and the hormonal system works in concert with the immune system. So all of these systems are connected. So chronic stress actually suppresses the ability of the immune system to act. act. And you can think about this even like in the sense of steroids, like if somebody's using a steroid as a medication, its job is to suppress the immune system. So in our own bodies, when we have cortisol, which is very similar in structure to different types of steroids, what happens is it suppresses immune function. Now, we do get this negative feedback system activated by stress that suppresses the immune system and can also reduce the number of beneficial white blood cells that protect the body. So any type of stress can have a harmful effect on what we call natural killer cells, which are part of that innate immune response or that general immune response. Now, actually, the adrenal gland, which creates our cortisol and our different stress hormones, can enlarge in size, increasing how much cortisol we're producing and then decreasing immune function, and especially different immune organs like the thymus gland. And the thymus gland is actually something that looks to regulate the immune system or create different immune cells, such as T regulatory cells that cause balance in the immune system. So these T regulatory cells actually help your immune system to differentiate, is this me or is this not me, right? So that's where we can see an overactive immune system happening, where we're starting to get allergies or maybe autoimmune conditions. So that's why some people after a stressful event may trigger them into an autoimmune reaction. So adaptogens and different herbs help to counter chronic immune cell depletion and actually improve the body's defenses. So this will offer increased resistance to pathogens and infections, increasing immunity. So these adaptogens are going to work on a number of different mechanisms of supporting cortisol. So they can actually act very similar or create building blocks to make cortisol, which is one of our main stress hormones. They can actually similarly bind to cortisol receptors, so kind of like a lock and a key, creating a reaction within the body. They can prevent the breakdown of cortisol, keeping it around longer, which allows the adrenal gland to start to rehabilitate and repair itself. It can also give feedback to this different communication strain, so from the brain to the adrenal glands. And it can work on other stress systems that can have a secondary effect on reducing cortisol. So for instance, if somebody has a lot of inflammation in their body, they may pump out more cortisol to help suppress that inflammation. So adaptogens are anti-inflammatory. So if we're reducing inflammation, we may see a beneficial effect in supporting somebody's cortisol. Now, adaptogens, as mentioned, are useful to support and repair the adrenal glands, including cortisol production and improving stress receptor activity. So you might need adaptogens if there's increased stressors. I see this a lot even with students, where there's increased stress and demand for mental performance, or even professionals with high work demand, athletes, which we don't often talk about for being supportive, or that being another stressor on our body, but like high endurance, reducing or increasing cortisol, and as mentioned, like those who were previously on steroids or longstanding inflammation. So I'm just going to answer a couple questions here. So should one take ashwagandha I'm just going to switch slides here. So should one take ashwagandha in the morning or at night? Apparently it helps deepen sleep. So absolutely, ashwagandha is something that I use for sleep quite a bit. And I would say the dosing can depend on what we're looking to support. So oftentimes, especially if somebody has high cortisol at night, so maybe somebody's dragging their butt out of bed in the morning, kind of pushing themselves through the day, venti coffee, sugar, something sugary, and they get to their evening and then they're wired for sound. They want to do 6 loads of laundry. They want to write their thesis, take the dog for a walk, pack their kids' lunches, and then they can't fall asleep. So I really like ashwagandha to help bring down that evening cortisol and help support sleep architecture and to help people fall asleep. You can use ashwagandha in the morning as well, barring it doesn't create any type of sedation or anything like that. It's not super common that I see that, but sometimes I'm using ashwagandha and I'm using other adaptogens first thing in the morning to help stimulate and regulate that cortisol curve where it's nice and high in the morning and it's going to taper off throughout the day. So when it's in combination with something like stress, which is our adrenal tonic. So not only does it have ashwagandha, but it has 5 other adaptogenic herbs to help relieve these symptoms of stress, mental, emotional, physical exhaustion, mental and physical fatigue and anxiety. I like to dose first thing in the morning, maybe a secondary dose before lunch to help bump up that cortisol curve. Now you could use this or ashwagandha similarly in the evening where we're looking to, again, bring down evening cortisol and help support somebody's sleep. So ashwagandha is something that I would use in the evening, but something like a ginseng or a rhodiola is probably something that I wouldn't. But that was a great question. So I'll answer that live. Okay. Okay, so there's questions about immune herbs such as echinacea. Don't worry, we'll get there. Okay, ashwagandha, arginine. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. So I use ashwagandha, which for me has many benefits. Is this a good sleep aid? Absolutely. And I really like ashwagandha in our capsules specifically because it's a particular standardized extract that has been really well studied to work to support sleep and sleep architecture. I find higher doses of this, so like the 2 capsules of our ashwagandha capsules can have more of a profound effect on sleep if you take it at once or closer to bed. Yeah, great. So I'm going to answer that one. Okay, perfect. So there's just specific herbal questions. So I'll get to those a little bit later on, but I'm just going to keep chipping along here. But you guys are so engaged. This is lovely. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about our next pillar or our next element of our seed strategy. So eat well and exercise. So eating well is definitely nourishing the body, and this is foundational to our health. And specifically when it comes to the immune system, I encourage my patients to eat the rainbow. And the reasoning for this is that you're ensuring that you're getting plenty of immune supporting nutrients and protective antioxidants. So different colors will have different phytonutrients or plant nutrients that will support different aspects of the immune system. Now, it's not just about what you eat, it's about what you absorb. So we could have the most perfect diet, but if our digestion isn't up to par, we're not necessarily extracting those nutrients to have benefit within our system. And sometimes when either our diet is insufficient or nutrition is insufficient of certain nutrients, or we have poor absorption, we can see difficulties with getting certain vitamins and minerals within our system that help to support our immune system. So specific vitamins and minerals, such as vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, vitamin D, which I'll talk about a little bit more, are all essential, meaning they're foundational building blocks for health and specifically our immune system, and specifically critical for optimal immune system function and immune system balance. So for a number of reasons, the general population is at risk of being deficient in some of these. And I'm going to talk specifically about vitamin D, and particularly in our climate, being from North America, that we have decreased sun exposure in cases of actually producing our own vitamin D. Now, as I mentioned, digestion is critical to absorption, and 80% of our immune system is actually located in the gut. So when we have inflammation, when we have poor absorption, dysregulation, then we notice that this can affect our immune system as well. Okay, so I'll just touch on exercise quickly and then I'll bump into vitamin D a little bit more thoroughly. But in regards to exercise, regular movement is going to help promote healthy blood flow, muscle tissue, lymphatic flow, and circulation of immune cells throughout the body. So it's about finding the right activity for you, and high intensity fitness may not be the most beneficial for everybody, especially if we're noticing adrenal depletion. So we don't want to stress out our system more. So as I mentioned, finding the right exercise for you is going to be key. But I just encourage movement daily. Sitting is the new smoking. So definitely any type of stretching, walking, movement. And I'm definitely a big fan of either resistance training or any type of weightlifting. So the whole theory of if you don't use it, you lose it is definitely true. And what we call sarcopenia, or basically deconditioning or loss of muscle, can create certain types of immune deficiencies. So progressive resistance training may actually have an impact on immune signaling. And while short physical exercise training programs don't necessarily result in major restoration of our deep immune system, we preserve our ability to recruit T cells and natural killer cells. So training may actually affect and improve the ability to increase our own natural killer cells, and their effect on killing different pathogens in relation to our exercise. So definitely avoid deconditioning. If you don't use it, you lose it. And I really encourage any type of resistance training or some type of weightlifting that's going to help to support really healthy functioning muscle. All right, so as I mentioned, I wanted to talk a little bit about vitamin D. So in general, a daily recommended dose is 1,000 international units. So that would be equivalent to 1 drop. However, that should be discussed with your doctor if this is the correct dose for you, and correct dose for children, again, because there are different pediatric dosing as well. And vitamin D is crucial to support and also to modulate the immune system. So in looking for a good quality vitamin D, generally my preference is in a liquid format. So you're going to get absorption in your mouth and under the tongue, making it really easy to take. Vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. So if you're not taking it in a liquid format and you're taking tablets, I encourage that to be with food. So sometimes people find that a little bit more challenging. And particularly with the fatty type foods, you're not only breaking down that fat and absorbing that, but then also utilizing that to break down and absorb the vitamin D as a fat soluble vitamin. So definitely D3 is what you want to look for, because this is the most bioavailable and active format of vitamin D. And people who may be at risk for vitamin D deficiency are Canadians based on our latitude, people of color, or those with darker skin tones naturally, because they actually decrease the amount of vitamin D that they produce within their skin, those with maldigestion or malabsorption issues, definitely women postpartum, and women who are breastfeeding and or nursing or chest feeding, to ensure we're repleting stores that baby may be taking as well. And then anyone with kidney disease, because the kidneys are a crucial organ in actually helping the transformation of vitamin D within your system. So yes, you can get vitamin D from the sun. However, full torso exposure, indirect sunlight for 20 minutes, no sunscreen, would be what you would need to get your daily requirements for vitamin D. So supplementation is something that I definitely recommend, and testing your levels. You can always test your levels. As a naturopathic doctor, I like to test levels, especially because my focus is in women's health, and vitamin D functions more like a hormone than it actually does a vitamin. So really indicating a lot of women's health conditions. So ours is in a liquid format in a base of medium chain triglycerides, so it makes it easier for absorption. And we do utilize an organic rosemary extract to act as a slight preservative, because anything that is a fat or a lipid is more susceptible to rancidity. That's why I was saying, like, keep your fish oils in your fridge, because they are more prone to going rancid. So using some type of a preservative or antioxidant can prevent from rancidity. All right, I'm just going to have a quick peek at questions. Insomnia. Okay, so I had a question. Can you use this tonic if you have anxiety meds or blood pressure medication? So that would be for the stressed formulation. So any type of antidepressant medications, you wouldn't be able to take our stressed formula. And then different heart medications as well. You would need to either discuss with your doctor, or you wouldn't necessarily be indicated in taking that. There's a question, can ashwagandha help eliminate nervous feelings? Absolutely. It's been really well studied in anxiety, and can be a really great adjunct to help reducing anxiety or nervous feelings. People feel a lot more calm when taking ashwagandha. Good. So why taking ashwagandha in pill instead of liquid, which is better for absorption? So I would say totally depends on the indication. So ashwagandha in the pill format, just because it's that standardized extract, that one has been, more studied with looking for sleep or reducing insomnia, especially in those higher doses. Liquid formats such as tinctures are going to have fantastic absorption. It just depends on the dosing of what we're looking to accomplish. And for me, the biggest thing is compliance too. So if somebody finds tinctures challenging to take, then I might put them on a capsule. But totally depends on the dosing that we're looking for. The liquid does have often superior absorption because it's absorbed in the mouth and in the stomach. And if there are absorption issues, tinctures tend to do better. But if I want those high doses, I often reach for those ashwagandha capsules. Okay, can you tell us what we need to take in order to absorb vitamins like C and D? So as I mentioned with D, I prefer a liquid for vitamin D supplementation. I find it's easier for absorption because you're getting absorption in the mouth and then also in the stomach as well. Vitamin C, I would say the best for absorption is going to be lower doses, just more frequently. Our body can only absorb certain doses of vitamin C at a time. If we're taking too high of doses at once, we're typically seeing what we call like more of a laxative effect, because it can pull water into the digestive tract and cause looser stools. And then vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin. So again, it's going to get absorption through the digestive tract. I don't use any type of liposomal or any types of vitamin C like that, because it is a water-soluble vitamin. So don't force it in a way of being absorbed that it doesn't necessarily need to. Okay, done. I also use vitamin C in IV therapy. Okay. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep moving on, and then I'll also have some time for questions as well. So when we're ensuring equilibrium, there are particular adaptogens that have an emphasis on the immune system. So these can be called immune adaptogens or immunomodulators, and these have a regulatory action towards the immune system. As I mentioned earlier, definitely the most strong immune system is a balanced immune system. So if you can think about it as a teeter-totter. So if it's underactive, we're seeing more frequent colds and flus, maybe chronic ear infections in kiddos. And if it's overactive and the teeter-totters actually flip to the other side, We can see allergies, we can see eczema, we can see autoimmune conditions. So while we're looking at supporting the innate immune system, this deep immune activation impacts the immune system at the tissue and enhances the body's natural defenses. So that's going to be different components of our immune system, like B cells, T cells, natural killer cells. And we're often doing this through different complex molecules, polysaccharides, saponins, all of those components that are in these different herbal medicines. So, as mentioned, adaptogens counter chronic immune cell depletion and help to improve the body's defenses. And again, as an adaptogen perspective, works on cortisol, but again, is more specific in supporting the immune system. Now, when we're looking to balance the immune system, as I mentioned, it's a teeter-totter. So using different components, it's what's going to balance the teeter-totter. Vitamin D would be one of those. And we can look to specific herbs, these different immune adaptogens or immunomodulators, such as our deep immune line. So this is all about protection. This is all about being proactive with our immune system. And our deep immune is a daily formula that blends 8 carefully selected immune adaptogens. So astragalus or reishi mushroom, if you've heard of these before, in the right combination to help balance your innate or your deep immune system. So when illness strikes, you and your family are protected. So we have, as I mentioned, this line. We do have our Deep Immune Original, which is one of our longest standing products at St. Francis Herb Farm. And it is a daily immune tonic. However, I typically recommend for long-term supplementation or long-term support from this deep immune stance that we recommend 3 weeks on and 1 week off. And the reasoning for this, it is about that slight challenge to the immune system. So we're helping to build and support those immune cells, and then taking that break or that week off to help challenge the immune system. So I always use the analogy of like wearing an ankle brace when you play sports versus like wearing an ankle brace all the time. So you can wear that ankle brace, helps to support that tissue, but then taking it off to help challenge that tissue to support that resiliency. So similarly with deep immune, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. When it comes to adaptogens, generally it can be a continuous process of taking those adaptogens long term. But when it comes to the immune system, I like that week off to help challenge the immune system. So Deep Immune Original is going to help support and fortify the immune system by restoring this balance to the immune system. And it looks to lessen the tendency to frequent colds, flus, infections, and then immune-related illnesses or signs of overactive immune system, such as allergies and eczema. So again, it's looking to balance that immune system. So we do have this in capsules as well. However, definitely our tincture is a wonderful option, but we do have both. All right, so Deep Immune Original. We also have Deep Immune Licorice Free, and we do have a licorice free format, as it's for those who wouldn't be able to take licorice, such as people with high blood pressure or they're on blood pressure medication, or for anybody who wouldn't otherwise be able to take licorice. And then we do have one for kiddos as well, so I can talk about that as well. So definitely if this might be you, if you're like, anytime something, went around the office or kids coming home from daycare, and you get sick, like anytime somebody around you is sick, you get sick, or you take a long time to fight something off, like it sticks with you for a really long time. Maybe you work in a job where you're exposed to germs a lot, and wondering how you can protect yourself. Or I see this notoriously is like anytime after a stressful event, you get sick, right? So I've seen this classically like in school where we're studying. We used to do that all-nighter to finish that paper. We write that last exam and we have a break. and then we get sick the next day, right? Because that is definitely related to cortisol and our stress response, where it's suppressing our immune system, and then it finally has the opportunity to act, and then we fall sick. So deep immune is, again, a really nice option for that. Okay. And then I just want to talk about this one study that was performed with our Deep Immune Original. And basically what the researchers found is that a cocktail or a synergy of all of these different herbs that have different aspects or work on different cells of the immune system have a more profound response on different cell types of the immune system. So macrophages, B cells, natural killer cells, and this is superior to a single immune supporting agent. So rather than like a straight reishi or something like that, the synergy of all of these different components is beneficial to have a more profound, deep immune response, and have that prevention within our immune system. Okay. All right. Just flipping through the questions, see if there's something that I can go through. Okay, so how does your deep immune work, and can you describe the herbs that are in it? So as I mentioned, the herbs that you may have heard of before: astragalus, reishi, we have white atractyloides, we have different herbs that are going to help support the immune system and find balance within the immune system. So it's going to support different T cells, and different natural killer cells or components of the immune system. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. 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 Ingredients. Okay, and then I will give you specific ingredients because I have some people asking about our specific ingredients. Astragalus, Codonopsis, Laurithro, Reishi, Ligustrum, Schisandra, and white atractyloides. And then, as I mentioned, our licorice is in our Deep Immune Original, and then we do have a licorice-free one. So for the kiddos, we can't forget them, that there is a deep immune for kids. And this is hinged on astragalus and Codonopsis, which have been used for centuries together in Chinese medicine. And this is largely studied in this deep immune component in supporting and balancing the immune system. It's a simplified formula, so it's great tasting, it's kid friendly, and we're looking to help support a growing immune system. So very similarly to our Deep Immune Original. Okay, perfect. All right, so then I want to shift into defending with plant medicine. So we've learned all about the preventative aspect, but what happens if we actually get sick? Okay, so when infection strikes, it's crucial to be prepared to react and quickly fight back to these different symptoms. So over-the-counter products may suppress the symptoms, but we're looking to get right at the root and nip that infection in the bud. So different ways that we can stimulate and stimulate the immune system to mount an effective immune response. So definitely you want to be proactive in supporting the immune system, but what happens if you actually get sick? So most of our herbs in our cold and flu, or our formulas in our cold and flu products, are based on this concept of Echinacea 2+. So what that means is we're actually using 2 different species of Echinacea that are more effective in stimulating and mounting effective immune response, because one plant compound in one species actually helps to keep around the immune compounds in the other species. So we're seeing that we're getting a shortened duration of colds and flus and lessening of the severity of symptoms. Now, we do have a straight Echinacea product where it's these two species that are working synergistically together. And then we also have our Echinacea for kids that is also based on the concept of this Echinacea 2+, so these two species, but it's a milder, more gentle, more kid-friendly tasting formula. But my absolute favorite is going to be this Echinacea product that allows us to react at this first sign of infection or these different general symptoms. So this is stimulating that innate immune response, right? That non-specific response where we can actually look to nip that infection in the bud. So Echinacea is going to be those two species of Echinacea plus golden seal, our sustainably cultivated golden seal, that work together for an immunostimulant reaction and also what we call an antimicrobial response. So I use this at the first sign of infection. For me, it's notoriously that little tickle in the back of my throat that's like telling me, oh crap, I'm going to get sick. So we're stimulating the immune system into action, and we're using other antimicrobial herbs or basically pathogen or infection fighting herbs. And again, is quite specific to like this area of the body. So upper respiratory tract infections, strep throat, sore throat, any of those components where we're seeing a higher increase of infection within that area. So we have myrrh, we have wild indigo, and if you've ever tried Echinacea or golden seal on their own, especially good quality Echinacea, you'll get that little tongue tingling, tongue drying, salivating kind of response to it, which is a marker of like good quality Echinacea. We offset that flavor profile with propolis, which is slight sweetness, but it also has antimicrobial and immune supporting benefits. And the spiciness of cayenne, which is going to again offset that more abrasive profile of Echinacea and golden seal, but it works to increase circulation. So we're getting more recruitment of white blood cells and immune fighting properties to the area of infection, but then we're also flushing out that area of what we call pathogenic debris, or basically like the garbage left over from fighting those different infections. We want to flush that out of our system. So it's a really beautiful, comprehensive formula that's going to not only nip the infection at the bud and kill off that infection, but work to decrease symptoms such as sore throat. So Echinacea in particular is what we call an analgesic, so a pain relieving properties to look to reduce sore throat on contact. So it's and cayenne as well as an analgesic helps to block different pain receptors as well. So we're looking to reduce that. Now, I'm just going to pop to this next one. So we'll see more comprehensively our line and the Echinacea 2+. And then I know there's lots of questions popping up, so I'll pop into there and help answer your questions. So as I mentioned, the Echinacea is going to be at the first sign of infection. And I usually hit this quite hard and fast. So I do lower doses more frequently. And so it might be like 15 drops that I'm doing like repeat every hour, that kind of thing. So I'm getting that immune recruitment, immune stimulation, and also the benefit of those herbs on contact, specifically for me, if it's that, sore throat or throat infection. But now, if it progresses to further symptoms or more specific symptoms, or you're the type of person where their infection goes to a particular aspect. So my mom, for instance, anytime she gets sick, it goes straight to her lungs, straight to her chest. So for her, perhaps Respirifect would be her first go-to or her first line. Not only are we getting the benefits of this Echinacea 2+, so these two different species of Echinacea, which compounded are enhance the bioavailability or the absorption of these different plant compounds, but actually amplifies the defenses of these different immune fighting properties. But then we're looking at specific antimicrobials, so different infection fighting herbs may have particular tissue specificity. So like I said, a lot of those herbs in the Echinacea product are very specific to here, but herbs like Usnea that's in this product, or mullein or licorice, help direct those infection fighting properties to lung tissue or to bronchial tissue. So not only are we killing the infection by helping to direct those herbs there, but we're also looking to reduce the symptoms associated with it. So it's like an antitussive, so it helps to calm the cough. And I would say calm a more spasmodic cough where it's ineffectual and you're not really being productive, but it helps to promote a more effective cough. So you're actually helping to clear out that infection. So it's kind of has this balancing effect in that regard. Then you're also getting the soothing aspects of the plantain and elecampane in this formulation, where that raw kind of irritated tissue, lung tissue or bronchial tissue, is looking to be soothed with those herbs. Now, if somebody has more specific symptoms towards their sinuses, so they might get pain above their eyes or just here below their eyes and into the sinuses here. Maybe there's thick mucus, like thick yellow or thick green mucus, and it's more of a sinus type infection. I really like Sign Effect, again, because of the tissue specificity of those antimicrobial herbs. So it's directing the herbs to the area of infection. So a herb like eyebright, which is in the Sign Effect formulation, helps shift that antimicrobial aspect up to the sinuses, but you're still getting the immunostimulation and benefit to that particular area. Now, Vireffect is a fantastic option for viral infections. And I know most colds and flus are viruses, but specifically when people are experiencing like fever, headache, muscle pains, where we want to get really specifically at that viral replication. Now, the Echinacea and those other herbs are going to have more of an indirect effect on viruses, where we're stimulating the immune system to kill the virus, versus some of the herbs in Vireffect, such as Andrographis, which has a more direct antiviral effect to actually go after the virus itself. So to stop the replication, to denature the virus and replicating mechanisms. So I find when you're experiencing the fever and headache, it has more of a profound effect. So somebody might get that immunostimulation initially with like Echinacea, and they could shift into the Vireffect. But again, somebody could go straight to the Vireffect if that's how they experience infection or their first sign of infection there. So really a comprehensive brand, but just in summary, Echinacea, the first sign of infection, that little tickle, and then you may progress to these different formulations that are more specific to different types of infections. So I know that was a lot, and I've been watching all the questions pop up. So I'm going to get to the questions here. So thanks for your patience while I get to your questions. Okay, so I had a question. Are you able to take on new patients via Zoom? Where can I get in touch with you? That's so sweet. I am licensed in Alberta, so technically within my scope of practice, I can see patients virtually, anybody who is a resident in Alberta. So if you are a resident in Alberta, I am happy to take you on as a patient. And my clinic website is flowyeg.ca. But St. Francis has put together quite a good list of practitioners that utilize botanical medicine. So if you're in Ontario, that you can utilize that, or go on the CAND website, where you can access a list of naturopathic providers that can help support you. Okay, so if you take certain immune boosting herbs like Echinacea, olive leaf, ashwagandha consistently, will it slow down your body's natural immune boosting responses? So it depends on the different herbs. As mentioned, specific adaptogens can be taken long term to help support the immune system secondarily. Immune adaptogens such as astragalus and those astragalus, codonopsis. I like utilizing those again in the dosing format where I said 3 weeks on and 1 week off. So again, you're helping to build and challenge their immune system. Something like echinacea, we're having more of an immune stimulating action. I would find that I personally only use it in direct stimulation of the immune system. So I would do that short term. So maybe if I were to take it long term in prevention, it would be like, and I know this is a dated response because of COVID, but when I would go to trade shows or conferences, so I know I'm flying, I'm exposed to a lot of different germs, I would take echinacea prophylactically for that time period. But I find like Echinacea, for instance, which is an antimicrobial and immune stimulating formula, you only use it acutely. So you use it to stimulate the immune system. Once you're over that cold or flu, then you can stop taking it. So it totally depends on the type of immune boosting herb. So if you need extra support and consultation, definitely reach out to your health food stores or look at a healthcare provider who can support you in that. Okay, so I'm stressed, I don't sleep, and have recently been diagnosed with prehypertension. My ND recommended ashwagandha and L-arginine, but both make me dizzy. So would this be due to a hypoglycemic reaction? I do also have some hypoglycemia, so low blood sugar. It's possible. I would say maybe it might be a reaction of both in combination. So you're decreasing your blood pressure too quickly. So maybe using one or the other. So maybe use ashwagandha first and then see how the L-arginine responds later. But it's totally possible that it's a hypoglycemic reaction. So you can test this with adjusting your nutrition. And with nutrition, I always talk about protein, healthy fat, and fiber whenever you put something in your mouth to help stabilize those blood sugars. So it's possible that it's a further reaction, but I would say work with your practitioner on that. So what herb is good for insomnia? My son has insomnia. So for kiddos, we have a sleep formula called Tilia Calm. For adults, it's called Valera Calm. And there is a ton of different herbs that are good for insomnia. In Tilia Calm, there is tilia or linden, there's chamomile, and then from the Valera Calm, we're looking at valerian, we're looking at passion flower. So there's lots of options where you can either try singularly, or there is also formulations that you can try as well. Okay. Joint pain in hands and knees. So our anti-inflammatories, turmeric, boswellia, all of those could be good options for joint pain in hands and knees. And again, if it's an osteoporosis versus an osteoarthritis, we want to make sure that we're supporting bone health. So it could even be a vitamin D or a calcium issue, but definitely your herbal anti-inflammatories like turmeric and boswellia might be a nice option, but totally depends on where that's coming from. I cannot turn when I am sleeping. What can I do? I have inflammation. So again, those different inflammatory herbs might be a nice option to reduce the inflammation to help support sleep. Yeah. Okay. I thought your company was in BC, not Ottawa. When did this change? So we were originally on Vancouver Island. This was years ago. We've been in Combermere in the Ottawa Valley, I would say at least for the last 20 years. I don't know if anybody else from St. Francis is on the call here as well. But yeah, we've been in the Ottawa Valley for quite a few years, but still very proudly Canadian. We started on Vancouver Island, and then when we started growing most of our own herbs, we relocated to Ottawa because farmland is way cheaper than on Vancouver Island. So we've been in the Ottawa Valley for quite a long time. Okay, ashwagandha, Google the side effects, should not be used with rheumatoid arthritis. Please expand on the side effect of herbs, mention especially melatonin. Okay, so Ashwagandha as an immune adaptogen or adaptogenic support can we say to not use in autoimmune conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis. Again, totally depends on the condition and totally depends on what else you're taking. And I would say seek specific medical advice for that. And then expand on the side effects of herbs, mention especially melatonin. Melatonin, you use 10 milligrams. It's a fairly high dose. And for me, I don't feel like melatonin supplementation or that high of melatonin supplementation is necessarily a bad thing. But for me, I always look and support root cause. So I look at, is it a sustainable aspect? And how can I support your own production of melatonin as opposed to using it as a supplement long term? So I kind of come at it from both sides. Okay, what are signs and symptoms of adrenal fatigue due to exercise to watch out for? Really great question. So one of my questions is, after activity, do you feel more depleted? And does it take you days to recover? If you answer yes to both of those, then possibly your level of exercise and your level of intensity of exercise is too high. Signs and symptoms of adrenal fatigue could be like lowered immune response, fatigue, possibly difficulty sleeping, chronic health issues, inflammation. I see it as like different reproductive challenges or issues with menstruation. So there's lots of signs and symptoms of adrenal fatigue, but specifically with exercise, feeling more depleted and multiple days to recover. So I'd modify activity from there. What are your thoughts on taking mitochondrial supplements for endurance and exercise? I love mitochondrial support. Adaptogens also work on mitochondria, which are like the powerhouses of your cells. And mitochondrial support in endurance exercise can be a good component in supporting basically like anaerobic activity and that kind of thing as well. There's multiple benefits with mitochondria supplementation. I quite like mitochondrial support. Okay. Do you suggest taking vitamin D3 with K2? So a component with calcium and vitamin D, I'll talk about that. So calcium is absorbed with the support of vitamin D. Now that's bringing it into your bloodstream. Vitamin K2 is telling your calcium where to go. So it takes calcium from the blood and puts it into the bone. So you don't necessarily need to do D3 and K2 together always. Like vitamin D may be just beneficial on its own, but if we're looking at it from reducing fracture risk or osteoporosis, utilizing with K2 helps calcium be pulled from the blood and put into the bone. So great question there. How is vitamin D3 function as a hormonal support? That is a whole nother webinar it's in itself. But we see recurrent pregnancy loss or miscarriage, PCOS and endometriosis, all of those conditions. When we look at those in women, all of those conditions, generally those women are deficient in vitamin D. So that's all I'm gonna say there, but it's a whole nother webinar. Or vitamin D, I believe like any other vitamin D, it's lanolin sourced. But I'm not sure if we have any other St. Francis people on the call to answer that. And I believe there might be some corn oil, but we do use MCT as a carrier there. Done. I believe our vitamin D, I think we would specifically have to say it's plant-based. So I don't think our vitamin D is totally plant-based or vegan. Okay, what about liposomal vitamin C? Can take higher doses at one time. Personally, I don't recommend liposomal vitamin C. I don't force pathways of how certain nutrients are absorbed. Vitamin C is a water-soluble nutrient. It's a water-soluble vitamin, so I don't put it in the liposomal form or use it in liposomal. I only use liposomal for things that are lipid soluble or fat soluble vitamins, or things like glutathione. Okay. Can we take the herbs in a certain manner, combined with certain herbs to improve absorption? So definitely taking herbs on an empty stomach is preferred, because you will get better absorption. Utilizing herbs in tincture helps to increase bioavailability, because we start getting absorption in the mouth and in the stomach. And then there are some mechanisms of certain herbs being better absorbed, such as you may have heard like ashwagandha or turmeric or those kinds of things having better absorption with fat, and like black pepper. So those types of formats I find are absorbed superiorly, but tinctures are a really, really great option. Okay, I'm just seeing for time. So I'm going a little bit over time. I'm going to continue answering questions if that's okay. But I will answer for another five or so minutes. Okay, is this the same for vitamin B12 absorption better with food? If it's in a liquid format, we call it like sublingual B12, that's absorbed quite readily. It doesn't necessarily need to be with food. But in general, vitamins themselves, unless they're in a format that are meant to be sublingual or under the tongue, are better with food. Yeah. Great. Are there any herbs that help with leaky gut? There are a ton of herbs that help with leaky gut. All of our mucilaginous herbs, so our DGL, our slippery elm, all of those are a good component, but that will be a question for another time. So what ingredients has the immune formula? I might have missed it, so I'm just going to repeat that. So astragalus, Codonopsis, reishi, Lurithro, and Schisandra, and Ligustrum, and white Tractyloides. Okay, good, answered that one. Can it be used in immune building for autoimmune? Okay, so really good question about autoimmune and immunomodulators. So the shortest answer is it depends. So there are certain autoimmune conditions. You can't just say yes or no to immune adaptogens in autoimmune conditions, because it depends on the type of autoimmune condition. It depends on the herb. It depends if somebody is in a remitting state or relapsing state, and if they're on other medications. So if somebody has an autoimmune condition, I do recommend seeking medical support or medical advice for that. How much after expiry date can deep immune be taken, or is it recommended to dispose of? Tinctures are magical creatures. I love tinctures. So not only is the alcohol a solvent to help pull out those medicinal compounds, it's also functioning as a preservative. So the shelf life is 5 years, 10 years. Tinctures keep a really long time. So unless there's if there's no contamination, which you would notice, like if there's anything floating besides like the actual plant compounds, they're good for a very long time. So you should be able to take it still. Too much vitamin D can cause palpitations. I have seen that, and it might just depend on the format, but I have had some people get heart palpitations on vitamin D. I have seen it clinically, yeah. So someone taking anxiety, blood pressure medication cannot take any of your products. No, the stressed formulation on blood pressure medications and the deep immune with licorice they cannot take, but otherwise we have a really good labeling in terms of contraindications, so I would have a peek at that for direct contraindications as well. Good, answered that. Is St. Francis a cruelty-free, no animal testing, and vegan company? We are a cruelty-free, no animal testing company. We are not fully vegan. There are some products that utilize animal products. So we're not a completely vegan company. Okay, what would you suggest to clean a cut with? Is it safe to use peroxide or use something to clean out the cut? Yes, you can use peroxide or rubbing alcohol to clean out a cut. Yes. Herbs you recommend for sinus infection. I hope I answered your question. The Sineffect is a really good option for sinus infection. Good. How does Manuka honey compare to Echinacea? I can't speak directly to Manuka honey compared to Echinacea. Sorry, I can't make that. Okay, so can Sineffect help with post-nasal drip? Possibly. Post-nasal drip is more about like what we call an atopic response. So it's very similar to hay fever, to allergies. It can be beneficial in that regard, but definitely working on the immune imbalance or immune reaction there would be beneficial. Okay, so you're wondering about the article. So the laying AL, I'm just going to go to that slide. Combo with hers more effective. Where can I find the article? I looked in Google Scholar, can't seem to find it. So the title of the slide, because it was actually conducted at UBC. So the title of the article is Prevention of Prostate Tumor Development by Stimulation of Anti-Tumor Immunity. So that was done with our deep immune response. So while it wasn't necessarily for cold and flu, we could see the aspects of the different immune cells that the deep immune supported. Great. How about the lymphatic tonic? I love the lymphatic tonic or lymph tonic. It is sensational for moving lymphatic tissue. I like using it adjunctively or even post-infection or post-cold and flu to help flush out the lymphatic system. So I hope I get a chance to come back on here and talk about that. Immune assistance if you're dealing with lung cancer. So I would say, again, for that teeter-totter of the immune system where we see autoimmune conditions on one side of the scale, where again, it's very dependent. On the other end of the spectrum with really big immunosuppression, where we're talking about cancer and lung cancer, I would say definitely speak to a healthcare provider. I don't really want to give guidance on immune assistance with lung cancer in this capacity, but I would say seek the support of an NDs, the CAND website. You can Google them, the Canadian Association of Naturopathic Doctors. You can get connected to somebody who has who can give you support in that. Okay, I have trouble turning off my brain to sleep through the night. I've been using lemon balm with great success. Is there a problem with using it every night? No, I really like lemon balm for that. I would say the only contraindication or using lemon balm, and usually it's in higher doses and higher doses long term, is if there's issues with underactive thyroid, it may be an issue long term, but otherwise that looks great. Where do you get your astragalus? I'm concerned about astragalus that comes from China. So our astragalus comes from a German farm in China. So it is a farm that we've had a relationship for decades. And we do third-party testing as well. We have this long-standing relationship with this organic farm for decades. But yeah, we do third-party testing for heavy metals, microbes, those kinds of components. And yes, some of our products contain lomatium. I believe the Respirifect and also the Deep Immune has lomatium. Okay. All right, such great questions. And I have two more that I can answer here. Perfect. Okay. just going to pop in the chat. Sorry. Okay. Okay, and yes, there's a webinar recording. So I would speak to Healthy Planet. I believe they'll have the logistics. Please repeat password. Okay. All right. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, I'm way over time, but I hope that you'll be able to have a peek at the recording or share. I know I didn't get to all of the questions. I appreciate all of you being so engaged. And then just request to have me back on and we'll get to some more of your questions. So thank you so much for tuning in and you'll have a great evening.